Some people don't hurt you directly, they don't insult you, they don't attack, they exhaust you, not all at once, not in a way that's easy to name, but steadily, predictably, as if every interaction draws from a reservoir you didn't know was being tapped. These are emotional vampires, or people who drains your emotional energy in the name of friendship. Not in the dramatic sense, not predators in the obvious way, but people whose inner world cannot remain stable without drawing emotional energy from others. They often present as sensitive, misunderstood, overwhelmed by life, and in many ways that's true. But what defines them is not pain, it's what they do with it. Emotional vampires experience feelings as unmanageable unless someone else is involved. Discomfort doesn't stay internal. It demands an audience. They call without asking how you are. They begin conversations already mid-crisis. They speak in long, looping narratives that circle the same unresolved problems. Not because they want solutions, but because talking temporarily quiets the noise inside them. They feel calmer when someone is listening. And over time, they learn exactly who will listen the longest. They gravitate toward people who don't interrupt, people who empathize quickly, people who can tolerate emotional weight without reacting. They are drawn to steadiness the way unstable systems are drawn to structure. What makes this dynamic difficult to recognize is that emotional vampires are rarely cruel. They may even be generous in practical ways. They may show appreciation. They may insist they don't know what they'd do without you. But listen closely to that sentence. What they wouldn't do without you is regulate themselves. They often dominate emotional space without noticing it. Their stories stretch, their feelings expand, their needs arrive urgently. And when you try to shift the focus, something subtle happens. They redirect, they minimize, they grow distracted, or suddenly they are the ones in pain again. Your vulnerability doesn't land. It gets brushed past, not because it doesn't matter, but because it competes. Emotional vampires don't tolerate emotional competition well. Another person's pain destabilizes them, so without intending to, they pull attention back to where it feels safer, themselves. They often live in a state of perpetual intensity. There is always something wrong, someone who hurt them, a situation that feels unfair. Resolution rarely arrives, because resolution would require internal work, not external release. So the same issues resurface, different day, same emotional weight, and slowly you become tired in ways that sleep doesn't fix. You feel heaviness before seeing them. You notice relief when plans are cancelled. You realize you no longer share freely. Your inner world has learned to make room. This is where guilt often takes hold. Because emotional vampires are not monsters. They are often wounded people who never learned how to sit with themselves. But understanding their pain does not obligate you to absorb it. There is a darker pattern beneath the surface. When boundaries appear, emotional vampires often react strongly. Distance feels like abandonment. Limits feel like rejection. They may become sad or offended or quietly resentful. Sometimes they accuse you of changing, of becoming cold, of not caring like you used to. Not because you've done something wrong, but because your nervous system is no longer available to them in the same way. They don't miss you. They miss the regulation you provided, and that distinction matters. Psychologically, emotional vampires lack an internal buffer. They do not yet possess the capacity to feel distress without exporting it. So they attach, they lean, they depend, and when that support weakens, they panic. This is not always conscious, but it is powerful. The relationship becomes less about connection and more about emotional survival. Over time, this dynamic erodes intimacy, because intimacy requires reciprocity, and this relationship runs on imbalance. One person empties, the other stabilizes, and eventually, the cost becomes unavoidable. For the emotional vampire, healing means learning to stay present with discomfort long enough for it to pass, to tolerate silence, to let emotions rise without immediately handing them to someone else. For the person being drained, healing means realizing that empathy does not require self-sacrifice. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to stop being someone else's emotional container. Not every bond that feels intense is healthy. Not every person who needs you is entitled to you. Some connections survive only because one person keeps giving more than they can afford. And when you stop, the truth becomes visible. Emotional vampires do not drain because they hate you. They drain because they don't know how to live without borrowing stability. But your nervous system is not a renewable resource. Awareness is not cruelty. Boundaries are not punishment. And choosing yourself is not abandonment. It is the moment when silent drain finally ends.